Hey, Champion Nation. My name is Kashaun Cooper, and I am the host of the Champion Nation podcast. Before we jump into today's episode, can you please do me a favor? It would mean so much to me if you can scroll down and subscribe so you don't miss any of our episodes. Also, if you can hit that little like button, comment below. Your comments mean so much to me and our other viewers and listeners. Now let's jump into today's episode. But you almost gave up that authenticity when you told, I believe it was one of you told your wife, hey, I'll stop doing anything just to come back.
Well, she was my girlfriend at the time.
Your girlfriend, excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. And I did. I told her I would stop it all. I would stop my transition. I would throw away all my clothes. I would delete all the pictures. I would do whatever it took for me to come home, and I'd never even speak a word of it again at that time.
Hey, Champion Nation. My name is Kashaun Cooper, and I am the host of the Champion Nation podcast. Today, this week, I am thoroughly excited. When I saw on my calendar that I had an opportunity to speak with Lexi Knight, I was so thrilled to have an opportunity to sit down and chat with her. And this conversation, I know for sure you are going to get something out of it. I know week after week I say I'm excited. And at least I have the proof to show why I'm excited. You are in for a treat, Champion Nation listeners and viewers. Today, we have Lexi Knight joining us. Hey, Lexi, how you doing?
Hey, Kashaun, yourself?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining the Champion Nation family.
Thank you for having us.
With that being said, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do.
Well, my name is Lexi Knight, as you introduced in the beginning there. I am a full-time content creator on Twitch and TikTok. And the reason I do it is because it doesn't seem to me that there's enough information out there for the world when it comes to the LGBTQA, especially the trans community. When I started transitioning, I went on TikTok pretty much just to tell my story, and I started gaining followership. And with that followership, I got really popular pretty quick. And with that came a lot of questions and a lot of confusion and, of course, a lot of hate. And so I decided to take it upon myself to be a voice for our community. And so I've been doing that now for the last roughly about 2.5 years. And I moved to Twitch, and when I moved to Twitch, we just became hugely popular, and I'm a partner there, and the rest is history. And I just became a super popular creator, and I do it full time now. I just want to advocate and educate for our community.
Wonderful. And you keep saying our community. Can you do me a favor? Can you just elaborate on when you use the word our community? What do you actually mean by that for those who are listening and viewing who don't know exactly what you mean?
I mean the trans community specifically. Okay. Obviously, gay and lesbian, bisexual, very, very popular. Everybody knows all about that. Widely accepted throughout the world even. But when it comes to trans people, there's a lot of misinformation and unknown knowledge out there about us. And so because of that, I advocate for us, and especially trans youth. Us meaning trans community.
So thank you for elaborating on that. Would you consider yourself a woman who believe in human rights and women's rights?
Oh, I absolutely do. And the interesting part about that is the fight is it's the same fight, just different side of the coin. Women's rights, trans rights, it's literally the same fight. The only difference being I'm not a cis woman. Obviously, I'm a trans woman. And I like to tell people, yes, I consider myself a woman. While we're not identical, we are equal.
Same fight, identity, same coin. What? Just elaborate on it, Lexi. I don't want to keep prying questions. I want you to elaborate on it. What do you mean by this?
Okay, so basically, women are fighting for their rights to bodily autonomy right now. They're fighting for their right for abortion. They're fighting for their rights now to IVF. They're fighting for their right for contraception. The rights to pretty much just have control of their own bodies. You know, there are no laws in the books for men for anything to do with their bodies, but it seems to me that men want to control women's bodies, and most of them don't even know anything about a woman's body, which is quite surprising, considering they want to legislate them. But that being said, basically, you know, the trans community is fighting for the same thing. We want our bodily autonomy. We want our human rights. We want the government to stay out of our doctor's office. We want the government to not tell us what we can or can't do as far as trans healthcare is concerned, specifically trans youth. And there's a lot of misinformation out there about the trans youth, about how they transition, when they stop, puberty blockers, hormones, this, that, the other. A lot of people don't know the process in which a trans youth goes through in order to even get on these hormones. They don't know that there's actually standards put out there by WPATH, which is the World Professional Association of Transgender Health, which is doctored by God. It's got an entire committee, and a lot of people don't understand that every major medical association in the country supports, as well as every psychiatric association in this country supports trans people and their transitions. And so when I say it's the same fight, just different side of the coin, we're fighting to keep the government out of our lives, to prevent them from telling us and telling parents what they can and can't do with their children. Because as far as I'm concerned, the government is not doctors. They didn't go to school for it. And they have no right to legislate anything. A doctor goes to school for many, many, many years. They are the professionals. And so we need to leave the job to the professional. You wouldn't hire an electrician to do your plumbing job, right? You wouldn't hire a doctor to tell you how to fix your car. So legislators shouldn't be telling people how to be doctors, and they need to leave the information to the professionals.
I appreciate you elaborating that. When you said being told what to do, can you take us back to a point in time when you said, "Hey, this is my life. I am." How young are you?
I am 46.
46 years young. So when all of this, when your transition started, and I know you have family, I know you have friends, but just from me reading the news and reading different social medias, that's not always widely accepted.
No, it's
to
not.
Go through the transition. So what type of backlash did you receive during this transition? If you don't mind delving into this.
No, not at all. This is actually my second transition, Kashaun. My first transition was in 2016. I was living in Worcester, Massachusetts. And originally I was living in Arizona. Let me back just a little bit. I was living in Arizona with a woman and her 4 boys and my children. And I had pretty much come out to her when we started dating. And so we actually moved across country so that I could transition in Massachusetts, because Massachusetts at that time covered trans healthcare, which I still believe they cover trans healthcare. I'm not entirely sure, but I believe they do. But that being said, I had moved there to transition. Needless to say, I started my transition October 2017. Or 2016, excuse me, started October 27, 2016. I had gone to Fenway Health in Boston. And when I started my transition, the girl I was with at the time seemed to be very on board. We were engaged to get married. She was very accepting, etc. And so I started my transition. Then a month later, Fenway Health put me on hormones. And then by April 1st, 2017, we were supposed to, she had moved out, but she was moving back to Arizona. She just wasn't happy in the state. My assumption at the time was that she was moving there. I was supposed to move back with her once she got there, got a job, got a house, get everything situated, because I had some custody issues to deal with my own kids at the time. And so I was going to stay back and deal with those issues. Unfortunately, that was the last time I actually ever saw her. And so when she left on April 1st, I gave her the very last kiss that I had ever given her on the porch that morning, unfortunately. And 1 second, sorry.
It's okay.
It still hurts to think about. The 4 boys, I miss them dearly. So anyway, she had left, and at that point, I kind of lost it. I lost it emotionally. I was in the middle of my transition, and a lot of people don't understand that when you're on a transition, you're going through a mental transition as well. You know, blocking testosterone in a male body, and then starting to take estrogen, your emotions start to overtake. You know, men are or typically seem to be less emotional, and women tend to be more emotional. And so those emotions from hormones really started taking over, to the point where I lost it. And I actually ended up in a mental institution back in 2016 for 3 weeks,
Wow.
because I had a complete breakdown. I ended up losing my job. I ended up losing my apartment. I ended up pretty much losing everything. My mom wouldn't take me in. My father wouldn't take me in, but I wasn't speaking to him anyway. My friends wouldn't take me in. I lost friends that I'd had for 20 years the first time. It was really intense. Like I'd raised my son. I'd gone through a divorce with my second wife, and I had raised my son, and I'd raised my daughter, and I had to drop my kids off at my ex's house because I could no longer take care of them, which was detrimental for me. So at that point, I'm living in my car, and I completely lost it. I ended up living in my car even after the mental institution, or whatever. They wanted to discharge me to a shelter because I had nowhere to go. But they couldn't discharge me to a shelter at that time, which is also something I'm trying to work on. And they couldn't discharge me to a shelter because a man's shelter would not take a trans woman at the risk of being assaulted or hurt by another man. A woman's shelter would not take a trans woman because I was still pre-op. I wasn't post-op yet. And so they wouldn't take me because I still had my penis at that time. And so because I still had those parts, I couldn't go anywhere. And so they wouldn't discharge me there. And they actually ended up discharging me to the street. And so I had my truck at the time, and I moved into the back of my car, and it was really cold living in New England. It was like -10 at night. It was in the middle of February. It was super cold. Well, April, excuse me. Super cold. And I couldn't sleep there. And so I had to go. And so I started traveling the country with my toolbox. I put it on a trailer that I had. I put it on there. I traveled the country working jobs here and there, just trying to make it across. It got to the point where I was homeless for an entire year. And I was on a budget of eating once every 3 days. But wow. I always had something to drink with me. By the time I had run out of gas here in South Carolina, which is how I ended up here. I ran out of gas in Greenville. And so that's how I ended up here in South Carolina.
Like you ran out of literal gas, like
I literally ran out of gas. My car would not drive anymore.
Holy smokes.
Yep. I was in a parking lot, and I ran out of gas. I had stopped to refill a big 100-ounce cup that I had. I could fill it at QT for like 80 cents at the time. And so I had filled it. I really didn't have a whole lot of money. I had like $8 on me at that time. And that money had to last me long enough until I could get either to a mom and pop shop. I could find a way to make some money. At one point, I had thought about selling my body, anything I could in order to eat, And so I ended up here nonetheless, and thank God it was warm when I got here. I think it was 85 degrees at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon that day when I got here. And I'm like, I can sleep here. I can do this. And so I did that. I was homeless for a complete year. And it was the worst time of my life, actually. But I did learn a lot from it. What ended up happening roughly, I ended up meeting a girl. Even being homeless, I ended up meeting a girl. We got into a relationship. Long story short, that was together for 3 years after that, to kind of sidetrack everything that happened in between that. So I had met a girl, 3 years we were together. She ended up being very, very abusive. And so I ended up getting out of that relationship.
Verbally, or was it verbally or physical?
Both.
Okay.
It was both. It was, have you ever talked to somebody, Kashaun, and they've tried to use information against you when you talk to them about some personal detail of your life?
Yeah.
That was that type of person.
So you were vulnerable. You shared some things with this individual, and she turned it around on you and used it against you. Is that what you're saying?
Well, she threatened to many, many times. And it's not that it was anything damning at that time. It was, about my personal life or,
right.
My intimate life, things like that. She actually ended up getting my truck repoed at one point in this relationship. She cost me my job. And so at that point, I had to make a decision. And the decision was, I'm a recovering addict. First off, let me say that I'm a recovering addict. I've been clean now almost 11 years. It'll be 11 years on May 15th. And
Congratulations.
So, thank you. And so, at that time I was seeing a Suboxone doctor. And so I had to make a choice. I could either pay for the Suboxone doctor or I could pay for the hormone doctor, which was it going to be because my Suboxone doctor would prescribe everything but my hormones. So, he'd give me Motrin, he'd give me my spironolactone, he'd give me whatever I needed, but no hormones. And so there was a separate doctor for that. And so I had to make a choice. And at that point, I chose to detransition because of the financial problems that I was having. I'd lost my job. I was trying to find a place to live. I had a little bit of money to take care of that because I had put some money away to get out of this relationship. I had put some money on a little Visa card. I had like $1,400 and I needed that to move. I had to buy furniture. I had to buy food. I had to turn on my utilities and things like that. And so I made a choice to detransition. I detransitioned in late 2018. And I was detransitioned until April 21st, 2021, when my wife came to me and asked me to transition. And on my second transition, I really didn't manage to lose anybody. I had a little disconnect with my mom, but I did not have any other disconnects. My friends still talk to me. My brother, my sister still talk to me. I still had my wife in my current family. Everything was really a complete turnaround this time. And not only that, I ended up being a successful social media creator, which was just mind blowing. It's like a complete night and day.
I'm over here stunned right now. Just how it was such a contrast between the two. When you were going through what you were going through, Lexi, were there any regrets that came to mind?
I get asked that question a lot. I do. To be honest with you, yes and no. Yes, at the beginning, when I lost everything, I lost my friends, I lost my family, I lost the girl that I was with for, almost 8 years. I was with the boys, I lost them. And, there came a time probably about 3 or 4 months later, where I spoke with the woman who had left me and I told her I would stop transitioning. I would do whatever you needed to make her happy. I wanted to go home at that point. I just didn't want to be homeless anymore. I didn't want to be struggling. I didn't want to be hungry. I didn't want to be hurting, Oh yeah. So that was definitely a point. But, and the crazy thing is it's like, I ended up stopping anyway. I ended up stopping anyway to detransition. And I think to myself, I'm glad I did it because it showed me ultimately, now that I'm clear-headed, down the road, I'm glad that I did it because it showed me what kind of person she was. That if she truly loved me for me, then me transitioning what I wear, what I look like, whatever wouldn't have really mattered, and unfortunately for her, it mattered. And it's too bad that it did. She was a wonderful woman. Don't get me wrong. She's a great mom, a wonderful woman. But I feel like her family interfered and life just got turned upside down for me. The relationship that I got into out of a rebound. It was strictly out of necessity. I'm positive I never loved the woman that I was with. But I still showed her love. I still showed her compassion. I still showed her everything you show in a relationship to try to make it work, for my own mental well-being, my own physical and emotional health, of course, because everybody needs a roof over their head. Let's face it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there was absolutely a time I regretted it.
Who or what did you turn to during those dark times in your life?
Well, I actually turned to suicide, to be honest with you.
Did you try?
In the very beginning, I did. I cut my wrist. And when I got through wrist number 1, I decided that it was a bad idea. And I drove myself to my doctor's office, and my doctor had me admitted. And that was a few weeks after, like I said, I got, into a mental institution, and I was there for 3 weeks. While I was in the mental institution, I also tried to commit suicide. I was in a very dark, bad place. I'd lost my mom and I were really, really tight. We were like best friends. We had always been that way. I lost my mom. I lost my stepdad. I lost my friends. I had no support. Nobody would help me no matter what. It's like, here I am. I'm homeless. I'm not eating. I have no food. I'm sleeping on the streets in my car, but still in the streets, I'm getting harassed by cops at least once a week, for wherever I'm parking. And, I said, I'm done. What is the point of existing? How can somebody exist on this planet if they have nothing? No support,
Wow.
And so, yeah. And unfortunately that wouldn't be the first time.
Lexi, what was the scariest part for you when it was time for you to present your authentic self to the world?
Losing everything. That was the scariest part, losing everything.
But yet and still, you did it anyway.
I did. I struggled with it. Well, let me back it up a little more. So, I have nerve damage in my right leg from driving, believe it or not, just driving cross country. Yeah, who'd have thought, right? And so I ended up with nerve damage in my right leg as a result of it. And that nerve damage, I ended up seeing a doctor for it, a special doctor. They do nerve pain specialists, whatever. Mm-hmm. And they prescribed me Percocet. And when they prescribed me Percocet, I took it for a little while. It didn't have any really great effect. It just, I noticed that, it just made the pain go away. And so after a little while, one wasn't working. Here I am still experiencing these thoughts, let me stop there. I apologize. Let me stop there for a moment.
Sure.
These feelings I've always had since I was a kid.
Okay.
This is something that I asked, when I was 5 or 6, I begged my mother to cut my penis off at one point.
Okay.
And so these were feelings that I had pretty much throughout my entire life. I got married at an older age, 18, just because it was the right thing to do. So I pretty much suppressed everything right up through, up into my, my late 20s. I said, well, this is obviously the way to be. I'm just going to do it. At that time, there was no language, no vocabulary for it. There just wasn't a name to it. So anyway, long story short, I got on, the doctor prescribed me Percocets, and the Percocets, were working to relieve the pain in my leg, but then one wasn't working, and so I would take 2. And then 2 wasn't working, and I would take 3. Well, at about 3 or 4, I noticed that these feelings I had started going away. Yes. But then eventually 3 or 4 wasn't working, and so I would take 5. And then 5 wasn't working, and I would take 6. And before you knew it,
6 at one time.
6 at a time, yes.
Okay.
At a time. And then before you knew it, I had a full-blown drug habit. I stayed that way for about 5 years. That drug habit actually cost me my second marriage. I was unattentive to my wife. I was unattentive to my family. I was always working, or I was always out looking for what I needed. It was insane. I joined a motorcycle club. So I was getting drugs there, anything I could do just to get my fix. It came to the point after 5 years, I had 1,000 pill plus month habit. But the cool thing about it was, and I hate to even say the word cool, because it's really, there's nothing cool about doing drugs. Right. Because, the crazy part about it, I guess, was that it suppressed her. I had no feminine feelings whatsoever. I was in a motorcycle club. I was a man. I was tough, raw. I could do what I wanted. You know what I mean? I rough and tumble, take care of my wife, do my thing, whatever. And I felt like a man, or at least what I had learned to be was a man, I guess. Not really, but anyway, that's what I had learned a man to be. So
Right.
my role model of a man wasn't my father. My role model of a man was television, people around me, the things that I saw other people do. That was my role version, my version of a man. And so one day I woke up. I was a mechanic at the time. I'd been a mechanic for 30 years. And one day I woke up, and for whatever reason that morning, I turned the light on. And I started taking the pills out of the bottle, like I always would. Mm-hmm. And I looked at my hand one morning, and my entire hand was full of Percocet. I was taking 15 10-milligram Percocets in the morning just to get out of bed. Yeah. And that was the Percocet that had the 500 milligram of Tylenol in it. So multiply 500 times 15. That's the amount of Tylenol I'm taking at the same time, along with 150 milligrams of Percocet. And so that morning, like I said, for whatever reason, I turned my light on because I used to just do it in the dark. It didn't matter to me. And I looked at my hand and I couldn't believe it. I was disgusted with myself. I had an epiphany. I don't know what happened. I had an epiphany.
Just like that.
Just like that. At this point, I had already OD'd twice. I had been in a major car accident driving across country. I lost my teeth. And at that moment, that's what it took. It took that epiphany right there. And so I took the last 15 pills I had that morning. I took my last dose. By 9 a.m., I had checked into rehab, and I haven't looked back since. I took everything I had, every stash I had that I could even possibly find throughout my house. I had pills everywhere. I had pills behind light sockets. I had pills in between doorknobs. I had pills in grates. I had them between the mattress. I had them in roof panels. I had them in my garage, in my toolbox, in my reloading equipment. I had them everywhere. And I had to tell my girlfriend at the time when I was in rehab where to go to get them all. I wouldn't be surprised in that house I rented, there's still a stash somewhere that I just didn't remember. I stayed in rehab for 2.5 weeks. I got out, and I've been clean since, and I haven't looked back.
Now that's an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing your authentic self. Authenticity, being authentic, on this show is really a big deal. That is the heartbeat of what we talk about, being a champion. But you almost gave up that authenticity when you told, I believe it was one of you told your wife, "Hey, I'll stop doing anything just to come back."
Well, she was my girlfriend at the time.
Your girlfriend, excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. And I did. I told her I would stop it all. I would stop my transition. I would throw away all my clothes. I would delete all the pictures. I would do whatever it took for me to come home, and I'd never even speak a word of it again at that time. The problem was when I got off of drugs, after about 2 or 3 weeks, it just rushed back at me. It hit me so hard and so heavy that I had to do something at that point. I didn't want to live that way anymore. And she, as far as I knew at that point, she was on board. I told her, I'm like, look, listen, this is me. I'm really not a man. This is the way I've been living my life. But now that I'm clean, all of these feelings that I told you about have really come back. They come back strong. I don't want to live my life as a man anymore. I cannot live my life as a man anymore. And like I said, as far as I knew, she was on board. And I was willing to give it all up for her over what I really thought was love at the time. But I really think it was convenience and lust.
Yeah, convenience and lust. Those they can be blinders at times in our life. They definitely can. Your community, the LGBTQ community, there are people right now possibly listening to this particular episode that's not willing to follow through on who they really are.
Yes.
What type of advice would you give him or her?
I would say, no matter what age you are, whether you're a teen, a young one, somebody older like myself, or even older than me, that it's never too late. Number one, I live by 4 rules, Kashaun.
Okay.
And I'll try to give the first one as clean as I can. Be yourself. The world will adjust. And if they don't, F them.
Got it.
Number 2, do you, because no one else will. Only you can be yourself. Only you can do the things and be you and make things happen you want to happen. Nobody's going to do it for you, just you. Number 3, and this is something my wife told me that really resonated hard with me when I started my second transition. Someone else's opinion of you is none of your business. The only opinion of you that matters is pretty much your own.
That's it.
Not your wife's, not your spouse, not your husband, not your mom's, not your dad's, nothing. The only opinion that matters is yours. And last but not least, and this is the one I would really tell everybody, is you've got one life to live. Live it for you and no one else. Because at the end of the day, the end of your life, the end of whatever, don't have any woulda, shoulda, couldas. Because you have woulda, shoulda, couldas, then there's, why did you live life? Why did you live for somebody else? Live your life for you, because nobody's living it for you, I assure you. You know,
not even close.
Nobody's living their lives for anybody specific. They're just living for themselves. They don't care about you or that one or whatever. They might have a voice or an opinion about it, but they're not living for you, I promise.
You're absolutely right. Are those four principles that you live by, are those 4 principles that you live by in your ebook, The Girl Behind the Mirror?
They will be, yes. They're actually part of the preface. The book will be coming out in May. It'll be something to watch for.
What sparked the idea to write this book?
My followers on TikTok and Twitch actually told me I should write a book. I should write a book about my life, about the start of it, the middle of it, the tragedy I've been through, the loss, the goods, the bads, the uglies, you know. And so I decided to start to tell my life story.
Good job for listening to your followers.
Thank you.
Good job for listening to your followers. So you've been through the good, you've been through the extraordinarily dark times in your life.
Yes.
But just based on what I'm feeling through this conversation, it seems like your life is on an upward trajectory. Is that correct?
That would be correct. Yes, it seems that way. It does. I feel very proud of who I become, what I'm doing with my life. I had no intentions of ever becoming a social media influencer by any means. People tell me all the time, Lexi, I love what you do. I love how you do it. And I love the message you put out and the inspiration that you are. And to be completely honest with you, Kashaun, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just telling people my life story. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just telling people my life story and, telling people, my opinion on things and how I feel, things should be. And people seem to be inspired by that because I guess they tell me I'm very real.
Yes.
I'm straight to the point. And I really don't pull punches. I pretty much say what's on my mind. And if you're offended, too bad.
I appreciate that. And, being you, being real, being who you are at the end of the day, when it's time for the blinds to close on your life, you want to look back and say, you know what? I may have pissed some people off, but at least I lived my life.
That's
I
right.
lived my life.
Mm-hmm.
And judging based off this conversation, that's the way you live your life. And on that note, we spent the last 30 minutes chatting about how you overcame different struggles and how you navigated being homeless. Hold on. Let me ask you this question. Were you homeless by yourself or?
I was homeless by myself and my little dog.
Okay. Is your dog still in your life right now?
Taco is my little chihuahua. He's still in my life today. Yes. He will be 21 this year. He is a old man. He is he's the ruler of the house. I have two other pit bulls that are sweet dogs, and he is the master of the house, if you will. Even being so small, I say he has Napoleon syndrome.
I can see that.
He's still an old man. He wants what he wants, and he's living his life peacefully, quietly, and happily, and undisturbed.
Beautiful.
He has everything in the world he wants right now.
Shout out to Taco for staying by your side. We spent the last
Taco
35
kept my feet warm for a long time.
There you go. Now it's time for you to keep his feet warm.
That's right.
What does it mean, in your opinion, in your own words, Lexi? What does it mean to be a champion?
That's a really great question, Kashaun. I guess to be a champion to me means to overcome the hard stuff, to know that there is always a means to an end, and that no matter what life throws at you, that there's a way to overcome it. You just need to find that path. You need to not give up. You need to hold strong. Because if I could go back and tell myself something 10 years ago, I would look at myself and say, Lexi, you're going to pull through and it's going to be okay. You just have to fight for what you want and you'll get it. That's what being a champion means to me.
Thank you so much, Lexi. Where could our visitors and viewers connect with you?
Your viewers can connect me on a few different platforms. Your viewers can find me at Just a Girl Lexi, all one word, on pretty much all major platforms. They can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and Audible. They can find me anywhere there. They can also, if they have any questions or concerns, email me at justagirllexi@gmail.com. I'd like to, plug my GoFundMe, which I believe you put a link in the podcast there. The goal is to raise money to actually fix my teeth from my drug use. I've been clean now almost 11 years, and I haven't had teeth about 14, so I'm pretty ready for it. Just have your, check out my GoFundMe if you can. That'd be absolutely wonderful.
Thank you so much, Lexi. This has been a pleasure. Champion Nation, fight for what's yours. Fight for what's yours. You know what's yours. Go out there. And what I mean by fight, I'm not talking about going out there breaking the rules, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the mental fight. Mentally fight for what's yours. Go after yours. If you're homeless, if you're, trying to make ends meet, if you are contemplating on, maybe it's time for me to come out. Maybe it's time for me to become my authentic self, whatever that looks like. The time is probably now. Don't take my word for it. Take Lexi's. Hey, I almost forgot. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Hit that little bell. Champion Nation, have a champion week. Take care. Thank you, Lexi.
Thanks for having me, Kashaun.